We had realized we had a stowaway someone in the third month of the journey. It normally would be a problem, but if they managed to evade security for 3 months and never made any mess or excessive noise, we concluded it would be probably fine. Well, we weren't entirely wrong about this. The first time I managed to get a glimpse of our accidental passenger was when I was carrying some crates with equipment back to storage. It was just for a split second. Two luminous eyes in the dim hallway, a bit of movement out of the corner of my eye. I startled, but they only skittered away, not paying much attention to me. They weren't violent or malevolent. Probably. Hopefully. The mechanic reported that someone organized the tools in the mech lab unprompted, which was unheard of. The mech lab was a huge mess most of the time. The evidence we found around suggested that it was our stowaway. They even left a weird pictogram on the drawing board, high enough that a normal crew member would need the ladder to reach. Then, a lot of little things started happening around the ship. A cleaned room there, a fixed leak here, the bored AI that giggled when faced with the question, where did the shiny new booster for the engine come from? Sick crew members swearing they saw somebody check up on them at night, singing softly until they fell asleep. It seemed like the weird creature that had hidden on our ship took a liking to us, enough to dote on us like a mother hen. We started calling them Helper. Helper gradually got less and less cautious when sneaking around the ship, sometimes allowing us to see them. Rumors spread that they were big, tall, with 2 eyes and long limbs, moving fluently like a shadow in the night. Every time I glimpsed them in a better light, a chill went down my spine. I knew logically that they were kind and nice, but my instincts always whispered to me that they were a danger. They seemed to like me a lot, though. Sometimes a soft chuckle reached me when I was rambling at the food crates, from above, high from under the ceiling. Nicely wrapped packets of rations somewhat appeared on my desk when I wasn't looking after a long stretch of work, too neat and precise to be made by anybody of the crew. At times at night I could hear soft creaking noises of the hallway floor groaning under the steps of someone heavy, and an eerie, softly sung lullaby echoing down the hallway, in a tune I never heard from any culture. The scientists were excited at the prospect of having an accidental passenger of an unknown species on board. I was somewhat worried, to be honest. If they were from an undiscovered new species, how could we be sure that they had enough food that was actually healthy for them on board? One day, I was tinkering on a piece of the turbine, trying to get it to stop clicking at random intervals. The sound annoyed me to no end, and probably meant something was stuck in the fan. I growled when it jammed, a muffled curse escaping me. I felt like crying. The deep space depression caught me finally that week, and we had another half a year before we reached our destination. Over the sound of my hiccuping breath, I noticed the floor groan behind me. A gust of warm, lightly wet air hitting the back of my head, and I froze. The footsteps stopped, and a deep, lilting voice sounded from just above my head. "Hey, need help with that?" Helper's accent was atrocious, their voice box barely managing to make the correct sounds, but they were still, unmistakably, speaking in my birth language. I yelped, jumping on the desk and turning, the screwdriver held defensively in my hand. My first proper chance to see them in full revealed things that had been better kept in the shadows. Helper looked wrong, like if somebody took a proper normal person, stretched them out, and painted the thing that resulted from that in a weird clash of colors. Their eyes were too sharp, too bright, too light. Their hands just a tad bit too spindly and sharp-edged. And they were big. Big enough that they needed to bend their head down, even in these high, airy rooms of the ship. I screeched in fright, squeezing my eyes shut. Helper made a soft, broken noise and skittered back, the floor groaning under them. "Shh, not be afraid, I not." They groaned, probably searching for the appropriate word. "I not hurt people. Little people? Little people, you good, not cry, please." The scratchy sound of their voice and the broken grammar nearly sent me into a bordering on hysterical laughing fit, my sanity slowly but surely slipping away from me. "My name is Jahir, not little people. Little people is in plural, too. It should be little person, if you want to be precise," I found myself saying on automatic, startling at the delicate trill of affirmation from Helper. "Nice to meet Jahir. My name is George." They introduced themselves, the foreign cluster of sounds at the end probably their name. I be one of the species human. We call us human. You call you? They asked, curious. Ah, we are the Habilta. Nice to meet you too. I risked a peek and relaxed, seeing them safely hidden by the shadows. A brilliant laugh came from the shadow where Helper hid themselves, a brief flash of white teeth and luminous eyes. Habilta. Good name. You look friend-like. You look like little creatures from home. Good creatures. Name fits. I like you. You helped me, I help you, we discover space together. Good deal? They asked, and left me standing on my desk, gaping at the shadows in stunned silence. Yeah, sounds reasonable, I managed to say, blinking intensely. Good. Now, need help with the machine? The eyes in the shadows blinked back at me. No, I think I'm good, I said weakly, jumping off of the desk. I go now then. If need, yell in storage. We'll come. The door opened a bit, and the spindly figure slipped out, leaving me with the jammed turbine and my heart threatening to jump out of my chest. Life on our ship changed a little from the moment Helper George decided that they should reveal themselves. Or should I say himself, for he was pretty quick to clear that up. We managed to get him into medbay for an examination. Researcher Kink nearly pissed himself with joy and fear seeing such a specimen. But alas, this resulted in half the crew gaping at the results for hours, buzzing excitedly, while Helper laughed at them from the shadow under the ceiling. Apparently he was nearly invulnerable by half the galactic standards and could eat anything organic if it wasn't full of toxic substances to the point where anybody else would die just from sniffing it. Go figure that the nice horror from the fairy tales would be a death worlder. But of course, our species came from a death world too, but home was just a Class 2 death world and not a fucking Class 4. Anyway, after concluding a thorough medical check and interview, Helper George got a file as a crew member all for himself. And we cleaned a broom closet out for him to use as a cabin, because as much as we liked him, he still was supremely creepy to look at. The pure joy on his face when he got his own badge was a sight to behold. And life continued that way. We just gained a very nice, very disconcerting, and very strong friend. I'm not kidding when I say he is strong. He can move the cargo crates like it's nothing, laughing at us struggling to carry anything heavier than the small food storage ones. One day he got a brilliant idea and made himself a cloak with a hood, spacious enough that the edges of his body were completely blurred. This, turns out, was a stroke of pure genius. We finally could have him in the common spaces without it creeping everyone out of their skin, and made the meals much funnier. A tall, shadowed figure in a long, dark, flowing cloak, hood obscuring his face, sitting at the end of the table and surrounded by a colorful, chatty, and cheerful crowd that arrived him only to half his chest, slurping the hottest soup we had on board and complaining in a low, scratchy voice that it was so mild, how do you don't have anything more spicy, little people? What is this even? Yeah, it was supremely funny. Captain Finge loved to kidnap Helper for hours to play this weird tactical game that he had shown us, chess. Seeing as they were the only ones to actually comprehend what was going on that board, it wasn't really that weird. All was good and nice. Until one day we got attacked by pirates. I had done what everyone that was briefed what to do in these situations did and hid, making the ship seem deserted. We turned off the engines, extinguished the lights, and blended into the shadows. You need to know one thing about my species. We are supremely good at hiding, with an ancestry tracing back to ambush predators. And so the ship was empty and quiet when the gaggle of outlaws broke inside. Eerie, even. Only the faint glow of emergency chemical lights along the ceiling casting long shadows from every corner. The tactic was to disconcert the pirates and hopefully make them think the ship was haunted or cursed. Superstitious bunch, the pirates. It usually worked, and if not, we had blasters hidden in the vents. We just forgot one small, crucial detail. We forgot that we haven't briefed George. The good thing was that he is smart, freakishly so. He caught on what we wanted to do to the pirates. The mildly bad, or dare I say mostly entertaining thing, was that he apparently took it as his clue to play the part of resident horror creature. And he did it wonderfully. The attackers entered through a breach in the wall of the second storage, where we kept mostly spare pieces for the ship and other metal cargo. The crates there piled high under the ceiling, and George was intimately familiar with climbing them. Oh, I had so much fun looking through the tapes afterwards. He had positioned himself that the light of a lamp that was flickering constantly, it resisted being fixed, framed his silhouette in such a way that his shadow would stop over the pirates, already huddling together with fear, and switched it on, earning a shrill scream of terror from the outlaws beneath him. He let the cloak swish back, throwing the hood off his head, and started laughing, eyes glowing eerily, teeth glistening white. The pirates froze, nearly pissing themselves with fright. George yelled something at them in his native language, sharp, biting, making you want to claw at your ears and cry with the sound, and jumped one crate down, the cloak like a weird cloud of darkness behind him. He screamed at them some more, and the blurry video showed the pirates kneeling and praying for their lives. I think he had a fright blaster with him, one that made loud bangs and flashed bright when fired while not actually firing anything, because there was a series of loud booming sounds and the cameras went white, and when it stopped, there was no trace of the attackers, only some scrambling movement in the place where the ships connected. Helper read the situation correctly and got the hell out of there before the chamber would get depressurized and kill him. Needless to say, we were really proud of him after that. Our beloved resident creepy guy.